नमस्कार। मैं अनुभूति डेली आवाज के मंच से हमारे देश विदेश के तमाम यूजर्स और व्यूअर्स का स्वागत करती हूँ। हमारा शास्त्र कहता है कि सत्वम सुखे संजयति, अर्थात सत से सुख उपजता है। इसलिए हमारे जीवन में शुभ भावनाओं और शुभ संकल्पों का सृजन सतत होते रहना चाहिए। सत्मार्ग का अवलंबन करने से जीवन की विशुद्ध यात्रा तीव्रता से प्रारंभ हो जाती है। अतः जब हम जीवन को परमात्मा की इच्छा पूर्ति का एक साधन समझते हैं, तभी हमारा जीवन धन्य हो जाता है। ऐसे दिव्य प्रयोजन को लेकर जब कोई व्यक्तित्व अपने कर्तव्य पथ पर समर्पण और प्रामाणिकता के साथ आगे बढ़ता है, तो उसके जीवन में भव्यता स्वतः ही उतर आती है। असल में सब कुछ परमात्मा की ही अभिव्यक्ति है, लेकिन अस्तित्व की विराटता के बोध को वही समझ सकता है जो प्रकृति एवं मनुष्यता को बेहतर करने के उद्देश्य से शाश्वत चेतना की अभिव्यक्ति की मशाल लिए हर पल जीवन के पथ पर अग्रसर है। ऐसी ही व्यक्तित्व की धनी है दुनिया की जानी मानी भक्ति कला की मास्टर पेंटर जादूरानी माताजी। लगता है इन्होंने कृष्ण के सभी स्वरूपों को अखंडित दृष्टि से महसूस किया है। इन्होंने कृष्ण के ऐश्वर्य को गुणों और धर्मों के साथ जाना है। इन्होंने कृष्ण की दिव्यता को विश्व जनमानस के हृदय में अपनी कला द्वारा उतारने का सच्चा प्रयास किया है। डेली आवाज की टीम डीए आज आपको इस विशेष दिव्य हृदय स्पर्शी साक्षात्कार के माध्यम से न्यूयॉर्क सिटी के ब्रॉन्क्स में जन्मी जादूरानी माताजी से मिलवाने जा रही है। इस्कॉन के संस्थापक श्रील प्रभुपाद से मिलकर उनका जीवन दिव्य हो गया। उनकी पेंटिंग और कला में वैदिक शास्त्रों के अमर शब्द बोलते हैं। श्रील प्रभुपाद ने इनके चित्रों को देखकर एक बार कहा था, ये चित्र आध्यात्मिक दुनिया के लिए खिड़कियां हैं और संसारिक कला के सूखे के बाद बारिश की तरह है। श्रील प्रभुपाद once said, these paintings are windows to the spiritual world and they will be like the rain after the drought of mundane art. जादूरानी माताजी की वैदिक पेंटिंग को देखकर लगता है कि उन्होंने अस्तित्व के परम नाद की ध्वनि को सुना है, महसूस किया है और उसे अपनी कला द्वारा इस पृथ्वी पर आध्यात्मिक चेतना को जगाने के लिए सजीवता के साथ उतार दिया है। दुनिया के अनेक पुरस्कारों और हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी, पूर्व राष्ट्रपति रामनाथ कोविंद और प्रसिद्ध बॉलीवुड अभिनेत्री हेमा मालिनी द्वारा सम्मानित हो चुकी जादूरानी माताजी, जो कि वर्तमान में मियामी में है। तो आइए अब हम आपको जादूरानी माताजी से सीधे कनेक्ट करवाते हैं। नमस्कार, वेलकम जादूरानी माताजी on the stage of Daily Awaaz. You are world renowned and master in Vedic painting. It's our honor to have you with us. I once again welcome you on behalf of our users and viewers from all over the world.
Hare Krishna, Anubhuti ji. I'm most honored to be on this platform of Daily Awaaz. And I pray that your audience of 1.8 million users and viewers feel spiritual nourishment from this interview.
Absolutely, Mataji, absolutely. जादूरानी माताजी Kindly tell about yourself before you have joined ISKCON.
Interesting question.
Yeah.
I can tell you the completely boring story, or I can tell you a completely interesting story. The boring one being that I was born and raised in Bronx, New York, and had the same kind of education as most people in America. High school, college. When I was in college, I majored in art and history. And then, of course, when I joined ISKCON and met Prabhupada, my art and history from the Vedas, became fulfilled. The interesting one is that I've been wandering through, as Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Ekupi Brahmanda Bhomite Konya Bhagavana Jeev Guru Krishna Prashade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. The living entity is wandering through 8,400,000 species in various universes, and when his Sukritis and sanskars, spiritual lives, merits, reaches a certain point, then he gets connected with a bona fide guru. That's my history before coming to ISKCON.
Yeah. In 1966, at the age of 19, you met with the founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, in Tompkins Square Park in New York City. Tell us something about it.
Okay, so that day, well, let's say in the past months, previous months, I've been wondering, why aren't I happy? Where am I supposed to go? In the crowds of New York City, I'd be thinking on my lunch break at work, where is everybody going? And where are they coming from? And what's the goal of life? So one day I had an argument with my father, and then I thought, this person could not be my father. So I went down to Tompkins Square Park, which so many young people went for drugs and music. And I saw right in the center of the park, there was somebody who looked like he was a genie on a magic carpet, sitting right in front of that famous oak tree, surrounded by about 10 students and hundreds of flute players and bongo players. And then I thought, yes, this sound is coming again. From previous lives, I had been involved with Krishna consciousness and then totally forgot about it for 19 years due to my previous sins and offenses. So now I thought, this sound is coming again. I followed the devotees back to the temple. I didn't know what the temple was. We'd never heard of Hare Krishna before. And then when I entered the temple, some of the brahmacharis were dancing, and somebody gave me a chapati, and the two brahmacharis were speaking and saying, the Swamiji just said that when devotees argue, just take it like clouds passing by.
Okay.
Nobody notices clouds passing by. I thought this is very strange in this day and age of the Vietnam War. Then I went up to see Srila Prabhupada, and that happened to have been an initiation day. So there were grains and flowers everywhere. And then Prabhupada invited me to his back room. And he said to me, we are eternal and everything around us is temporary. And I was thinking, well, today I'm on LSD. I hope that this high can stay forever. So Prabhupada said, everything material is temporary. And this is not a process that you or I have made up. This process is very old, simple, and sublime. He invited me to come to his morning classes, hour and a half from where I lived in the Bronx. But because he's such a sankalpa, meaning whatever he says happens. So every day after that, I started traveling the 1.5 hours with 5 train changes to come to his morning classes. That's how it started.
Okay. So that was a memorable day of your life, and it entirely changed your life.
entirely changed.
Yes.
Entirely changed my conception of myself, who I am. That I'm
Right.
not this body, but I'm eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, that God is a person. He has pastimes. Our goal is to enter those pastimes and serve there. And also my change is, what is the goal? I remember asking my mother just before meeting Prabhupada, looking through the newspapers, is that what I have to become when I grow up? And she didn't know. And then I asked her, if I wasn't born of you, would I still exist? She didn't know. And Srila Prabhupada gave all the answers.
All the answers, right.
All the answers.
Yeah. So he had the clarity of thoughts, and he actually knows about Krishna, about the materialistic world, that as you said, that the world is temporary. Everything around us is temporary, and that's a very good thing. Jadurani Mataji, how did your life consciousness changed after you got connected with Prabhupada Ji and ISKCON?
Nice question. I mentioned that my goal changed and the process to reach that goal changed. So I started coming to his morning classes, and he was speaking about Bhagavad Gita and also Chaitanya Charitamrita. Evenings Bhagavad Gita, mornings Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he asked one of the brahmacharis to ask me, what do I do? And I said, well, I'm kind of an artist, but I'm not a very good one. So then he went back and told Prabhupada. Prabhupada immediately called me into his quarters and gave me one after another pictures from India to paint, like Radha Krishna and Sankirtan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan. And so I immediately started staying for the day, buying paints and copying the pictures. And I was doing one picture of the Sankirtan. So then everything was off proportion. Like I'd have legs coming from a different place than the other part of his body. It was a terrible copy of the original print. But Prabhupada was so encouraging. He came into the downstairs temple where I was painting, and he said, Krishna has sent. And I was thinking, Krishna has sent me? He's so encouraging and empowering. And then one of the very first paintings that I did, copying from this little teeny Indian print that he gave me of Lord Vishnu in the causal ocean, he made a big announcement to all the devotees in his room that who could look at this and say that is not God? And it was so off. Vishnu's hands looked like baseball gloves. His club looked like an ice cream cone. But I was so encouraged and felt so empowered that I said to myself, yes, I don't know if I can ever do such a beautiful painting again, but I sure will try by this great personality who loves me so much. And it went on and on. First painting for his temples and then painting for his books.
Jadurani Mataji, after your association with ISKCON, how divine did your family and friends felt about you?
Unfortunately, nobody was interested at all. But Prabhupada's first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was the only volume of Srimad Bhagavatam that we had in those days, I would come and look through the words, and I saw that if one leaves his materialistic family for Krishna consciousness, that is the very best service to the family, because even if one is a neophyte, 7 generations of the family become liberated. And if one is a middle-class devotee, then 14 generations are liberated. And if one becomes a pure devotee, then 21 generations are liberated. So by Prabhupada's purity and power, spiritual beauty, I became convinced immediately that this is the very best service I can do, not for my present family only, but for generations of family.
Right. Very rightly said, Mataji, that You have done a best service to your family and friends. Mataji, how did Srila Prabhupada of ISKCON recognize your art? Any divine memory related to this? Kindly share with us.
As I mentioned, he was very encouraging. When I was doing the painting of Lord Nrsingadev, Prabhupada was so there with me that he posed for Lord Nrsingadev. He went like that and said that prayer, Namaste Narasingaya. He said, "Oh, my Lord, in your lotus palms, you have long lotus nails with which you ripped apart the wasp-like demon Hiranyakashipu." And practically I could see long nails because the Lord is like manifest in the heart of the pure devotee. And one could feel the Lord's presence in every aspect of him. And then he had the temple president and temple treasurer, Brahmananda and Gargamuni, posing for Hiranyakashipu and Nrsingadev. So he was right with me. He was so encouraging. And then when I was finished with a couple of paintings, and I went to the store to get plywood and painted it blue-green as the first ISKCON frames, Prabhupada actually got a pestle, that for grinding and smashing spices. And he actually helped me hammer the nails into the frame.
Oh, wow.
So he was so empowering and so encouraging.
Right. A wonderful person.
And then he had me, as his temples were opening, second temple in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Montreal. He said, "I want you to do the paintings that I'm asking you to do now. I want you to spread it to every temple."
Okay.
So then I would start packaging and boxing, and in that way it went on.
And your art was recognized perfectly by a perfect person. And your paintings are as beautiful as you are, Mataji.
Actually, as I said, he was so encouraging in the beginning. But then a year or two later, he said, she was not very good, but I encouraged her. And now she's good. A few years later, after that, she wasn't very good, but now I'm encouraging her. Finally, in 1977, he said, in the beginning, she could not paint. But by the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, all the painting came out. And then they gave the most encouraging remark in 1977 in his quarters in Krishna Balaram Mandir that she paints with her soul. I was so encouraged that it's a actually divine connection.
Absolutely. We came to know that in 1967, Srila Prabhupada have made you the first art director in his institutions. How did you feel at that moment?
Well, it's interesting that I was actually the only artist at that time. So he planted the seed, and then gradually he sent more artists, Bharadwaj and Murlidhar. And he encouraged me by bringing in also lady artists, and then writing me letters how I want, and what in order. He said, I want to see that one picture comes out every day. So I want to fill the world with these paintings. And we had training for the young girls, and the young men, they were already very expert. So we formed a team. And then in 1969, Srila Prabhupada invented what he called the assembly line, or collaborative art, because his books were coming out so fast. In fact, a book a month, and that was actually happening by his power. So he said the art department would break up into one person, that was Bharadwaj. He'd start the painting, and then I would develop it, and Murlidhar would put on the details. He said in this way, each painting would take 6 days, 222. But every 2 days, a new painting would come out. And by his power, that all happened. So for years, we were on this assembly line. And then, because now our skills were very similar. So then we started painting our own paintings. But first Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and for Chaitanya Charitamrita, he wanted 17 volumes done in 2 months, both by the editors and the artists. So the BBT manager said, Prabhupada, that's impossible. And Prabhupada said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. He made us ex-hippie meat eaters turn into working 22 hours a day and painting for his books.
Oh, but that's amazing. That's amazing. Jadurani Mataji, in 1992, when you completed the Seva Kunj painting of Sri Radha Syam Sundar, you received the nickname as Syamarani Dasi. How did you feel that moment?
Well, I received that nickname from another self-realized soul who was actually Srila Prabhupada's first disciple, way before any of us ISKCON devotees met Prabhupada, and that was at the time of my birth. His name is Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And he continued my training in philosophy and art. And there was something that Srila Prabhupada did back in 1967, since you mentioned 1967, is, I had just come out of the total hippie world. So Prabhupada noticed, couldn't help but notice, that I was very spaced out when I was painting, looking here and there, sometimes looking at the canvas. So just like Krishna took the bright side with Putana Witch, so Srila Prabhupada took the bright side with me. And he said, came over to the painting and he said, every creative person has to think more than they do. And he gave the example of a judge. The lawyers give their verdict, and then he has to think, which way do I want to go? So that takes a long time. And then the verdict comes out, the words come out in 1 second. So he was saying every creative person has to think more than they do. And he interestingly gave the example, I think you all know about Srila Jayadev Goswami. He is the author of Sri Gita Govinda, about the love pastimes of separation and meeting of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. And he said that because he was writing in his trance, and Radharani had done man, transcendental jealous anger. I don't want to speak to you. Go back to your other lover. So Krishna was begging her, his peacock feather was at her feet, and he was begging, please be magnanimous and put your lotus feet on my head. So when Jayadev Goswami was writing this, he had a will to write, but it couldn't come out of his pen. His heart was trembling, his hands were trembling, and he thought, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Radhika is his Sevika. Maybe she's the best Sevika and controls him by his love, but to have his feet at her, his head at her feet, I cannot write this. So he told his wife Padmavati, Prabhupada's telling this history, he told his wife Padmavati, I have to go and bathe in the river. So then he went, and a short time after that, Padmavati noticed that it looked like her husband had come back, but it wasn't. It was Krishna disguised as his, who took his form. And Krishna himself asked for the book and wrote it. He wrote that last line. Please be merciful and place your lotus feet on my head. And so then the real Jayadev Goswami came back, and she said, how did you get back so quick from the river? You just left. He said, no, I left some time ago. She said, no, you came back and you wrote something and then you left again. But now your hair is wet. How did you go all the way to the river and come back? So he said, let me see that book. And he saw in golden letters what Krishna had written. And he said, you're so fortunate that Krishna came and gave you his darshan. I'm not so fortunate. And both of them wept profusely and fainted. So Prabhupada's idea there is that he was taking the bright side. I was spaced out. He was saying meditate. Later on, by his Satya Sankalpa, it became meditation. I would hear Srila Prabhupada's cassette tapes. And then Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj was giving many lectures on Vilapa Kusmanjali, which is all about the prayers of Raghunath Das Goswami for service to Srimati Radhika.
Okay.
So I had so much to meditate on, and then it just started coming. I would put on the paint, and then it would look like paint. So I'd have to pray that please come into my heart. I'd have to pray to Srila Narayan Maharaj, to Srila Prabhupada, and really get into meditating of what they're thinking, how they're feeling. Like in the Sekunj painting, they're feeling Kilakinchita Bhav, which is 7 apparently contradictory moods, and she's weeping and simultaneously smiling, and he's at the same time smiling. So I had to do a lot of meditation and a lot of prayers, and Prabhupada planted the seed for that, and then Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj made that seed fructify into the flower of the Sevakunj painting. And because it's a painting of Radha Shama Sundar, he named me Shamarani Dasi. And he explained that in the beginning, Srila Prabhupada gave me the name Jadurani because Jadurani is in relation to Krishna in Dwarka. So in Dwarka, everybody knows that he's God. Sometimes he has a four-armed form. Sometimes he does the universal form. And so even his queens sometimes know that he's God. So he said, Prabhupada named you Jadurani. So first you would understand very philosophically, Siddhantically, that Krishna is God. And then he inspired me. Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj said that Prabhupada inspired him because they're friends in the other world. He inspired me to give you the nickname Shamarani because now he wants you to go to the Vrindavan side.
Wow.
To be a servant of Srimati Radhika.
So Srila Prabhupada has already recognized and got that vision that the magic of Krishna he actually saw in your paintings, and that's why he has given you the name as Jadurani, as the magic is there in your painting as well. And as you mentioned that we have to live those moments of Krishna, of Radha, so we can also feel those moments in your paintings, and that's a very, very good thing and a wonderful art that you have, Mataji.
I can't take any credit.
Yeah, everything is actually, everything is done by the God, by the Lord Krishna.
And actually, as you mentioned, Prabhupada set the whole thing in motion by saying that these paintings would be like the rain after the drought of mundane art and every practice. And he also, of course, as everybody knows these days, he said these paintings are windows to the spiritual world.
Spiritual world, yes, right.
He also said that anybody who sees these paintings will become devotees, and that is our aim.
Oh, wow. Mataji, your Vedic paintings cannot be praised in words. Its liveliness is indescribable. After all, how you are able to put Radha Krishna on canvas with real emotions. Tell us something about that divine vision. What you think about it?
I didn't do it at all. It's the heart of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, my office is in Bombay, my place of worship is in Navadvip, my home is in Vrindavan. So it's the heart of Srila Prabhupada and also his representative, Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj. It's their power that put the emotions in.
Right. It's your greatness, Mataji. It's wonderful. Jadurani Mataji, you have visited many countries along with India. We would love it if you could share your thoughts about Bharat Bhumi and Vrindavan.
Well, interesting that you asked that because when I was having the interview with Prime Minister Modi about a year and a half ago, he asked me a similar question.
Okay.
And I said how India is the most important place, not only, from my experience and from Shastra, it's the most important place, not only on the planet, but in the universe.
Wow.
India Ayodhya, we have all of Krishna's incarnations appeared in India. Krishna himself appeared in Vrindavan.
Yes.
And so because all the incarnations came there, the Vyasadeva wrote there, the disciplic succession is coming from there. Kurukshetra, in Navadvip, all of the holy places are there.
Yes.
In one little corner of Navadvip, which is Vrindavan, Abhina Vrindavan, non-different from Vrindavan. Like in Vidyanagara, in every single place, there's the same thing that happened elsewhere in India is all in a little corner of Navadvip. So you Indians are the most fortunate. And what to speak of Vrindavan, because the 3/4 abode of the Lord, that is all the Vaikuntha planets and the topmost planet Goloka Vrindavan, which is shaped like a 1,000-petal lotus, descended into Vrindavan, where not only the 1/4 part, this material world, but an insignificant dot in there's like we are now. I'm in Miami. I think I'm so important, but it's an insignificant dot in the state of Florida, which is an insignificant dot in the planet, which is an insignificant dot in the universe. But of all that, Vrindavan is not a material place. It's the abode of the Lord. And so it's just covered, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur stated in his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Navadvip is the spiritual world covered by a thin layer of Maya. So the pure devotees like Prabhupada come up from the actual abode and work very hard to bring us back there. So I'm just so fortunate because I'm a very lazy person, but because I had to do all the paintings for Srila Prabhupada, I had to read everything because we artists had to pick out the pictures.
Right.
We had to read it, we had to take notes, and we asked Prabhupada so many questions. I received personally 90 letters from him. This one has a mustache, this one has a beard, this is what Kshatriyas look like, this is what the thatched hut looked like of Diti and Kashyap Muni. So all the information came from Srila Prabhupada, whatever we didn't see in the books themselves.
Right.